Are you facing the same objections over and over again? What if at the end of your conversation or at the end of your presentation, there are very little or no objections? Do you want to handle objections like a pro? Then come, let me show you on how to handle objections like a pro using the objection handling pyramid. Now this is the most powerful method on how to handle any type of objection. Now you're already aware of all the possible or common objections that you're facing in your own industry, isn't it? And maybe you have already faced those specific ones. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down every possible objection. Write it down. And then you answer those objections in the best possible manner. You script it out. Now once you have the script, you need to build this into your presentation or into your conversation. See, this is the foundation that most people miss out. You need to build it into your presentation or into your conversation so that in the end, there are very little or no objections. And in spite of that, if you have any objection or concern, then you go to the next step. The next step is to align yourself with your prospect's thoughts. You need to align your thinking with your prospects. And how do you do that? For example, if your prospect says, "This plan may not work for me," now you need to align yourself with their thinking. So you could say, "I'm glad you brought up this concern that this plan may not work for you. I understand it." So you need to empathize with them. So when you empathize with them, you synchronize into their thinking, you synchronize with them, you align with them, which means you get into the map of their world and you understand them. And that's why you tell them, "I understand what you're saying." So that's the second step. So once you have aligned your thinking with your prospect's thinking, then you move to step number 3. And step number 3 is to convert that objection into a question. Because remember that you can't answer an objection, but you can answer a question, isn't it? So convert that objection into a question. So how do you do that? Like for example, the concern that your prospect had is this, that this plan may not work for me. So you take that sentence and convert it into a question. So Mr. Prospect, what you're saying is that this strategy or this plan is not going to work for you. That's your question, isn't it? And once you frame that question, then you move to the next step. You need to then answer that question. Now when you answer that question, you need to back it up with a story, with a case study or an example that they can connect with, that they can relate to in that given situation. What is relevant to what is being discussed. So that is the most important thing. Why? Because remember that facts tell, stories sell. So when you give them the case study or when you give them an example of someone else that has already done it, now that will be social proof and it will give them an assurance that yes, this may work for me. And that way you could handle that objection and you could increase your sales conversion. So these are the 4 steps, my friends, that you must embrace and follow and practice. So the very first step is to script out all those objections and the answers to them. You script it out and you build it into your conversation or into your presentation. And in spite of that, if you face any objection, then you move to the next step. You align your thinking, get into the map of their world. you synchronize with them, with their thinking, and you empathize with them and assure them that, yes, I understand your concern. And then you move to the next step. You convert that objection into a question. And once you have framed that question, you go ahead and answer that question and back it up with a story, with a case study or an example that they can connect with and that they can relate with. And if you embrace this process, and if you do it over and over again, and if you master this, you can handle any objection like a pro.